Um, so there's really no lesson tonight. In other words, I'm not teaching. You guys are sharing. Well, we're all sharing. Uh, bamboozled. Actually, it's not though, because I put it into the group me that we're going to be sharing. And that's fine. The doors are locked. We haven't even taken an offering yet. Kidding. But in Hebrew culture, they would get around a literal campfire, not a virtual campfire, but a literal campfire, or maybe not an actual campfire, but they got around as a people group, as a community, and they would talk about what Yahweh, Adonai, whatever the name you were calling him at the moment, there was a point in time where they would just go, but they would just share what the Lord is speaking to them. We've kind of turned it a little bit more into like, we share all the prophetic words we got at conferences and stuff, but what is the Lord actually saying to you? Not a word you got from somebody else. While that is the Lord speaking to you, Jesus didn't say, my sheep will attend spiritual meetings and other people will give them words saying that it's behalf of my voice. What is that voice speaking to you in this time of your life? Because we are the body of Christ. We make up the body as individuals. So what the Lord may be speaking into your life may be actually beneficial to her life and my life. But we've turned it into like, here's the center of attention, and this is what the Lord is saying. And then all of a sudden I become the authority in the voice of the Lord. But that was never meant to be that way. It was meant for us to share, because each of us carry a puzzle piece of the equation of what God is speaking to us, what God is speaking to the body.
It's kind of like the body itself. It's comprised of many parts.
Exactly. And so the body is comprised of many parts. And we know what Scripture tells us. We know in part, we hear in part, we see in part. Guess what that means?
Everybody has a part.
Everybody has a part. It's like Lever 2000. Everybody, there's 2,000 parts at least, and so we all carry an individualistic aspect of the character of who God is, and we all each carry our own expression of who God is. And if we don't embrace the expression of what the other individuals carry, we're missing an aspect of who God is. And so my thought for this month, for the rest of this month, maybe even a little bit into January, is, what is the Lord speaking to you? What is He saying? Because it's and the reason why I think it's important for us to hear for what the Lord is saying to us, or for you to hear what the Lord is speaking to you, is faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Lord. So when the Lord speaks to you about a thing, like, for example, have you ever had the moment where you have a dream, or the Lord speaks to you about something, and you're going, well, and then X, Y, or Z event happens, and you go, well, why did the Lord tell me about it? You ever thought maybe it was just for preparation's sake? I think about when the Lord told me about my dad passing. There was two reasons behind that. One, so that I could reconcile the relationship with him before he passes. Because how horrible would it feel if he had passed, but I never got to reconcile the relationship? And then on the other side was his kindness in preparing me. I can easily see night and day. Granted, my relationship with my mom was much closer, but the reaction time frame and the length of time to heal was a little different because I was taken by surprise. And so sometimes the Lord will speak to us for preparation's sake, for faith's sake. It's really never just for knowledge. If it was just for knowledge's sake, then God probably wouldn't have called the tree of knowledge of good and evil wicked. Would have not forbid us to eat from it. So he's never speaking to us for just knowledge's sake. His word literally is actionary. And so in that, what is he speaking? What's he been saying to you? There's no wrong answer. Welcome to doing SOS at a house. People will have pets, and cats will scare you. So
weird. You just asked point blank, and that's what my mind did. Point blank.
So I have some things going on at work
mm-hmm.
with, I don't know, because I don't want to.
Well, no one can see you and no one knows where you work.
With an individual that is moving to my shift who is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
It's just very stressful for me right now.
Right.
So I think God's really speaking patience and understanding.
Really putting that 1 Corinthians 13 to a test. As he's doing with Lacey right now.
So that's really, in that situation, that's what he's really speaking.
Yeah. I mean, with that's something the Lord's been. You're not on the daily devotional thing that I do, but she is, and so she sees.
I haven't been getting it.
Oh, it's because you have an Android. I send it every day.
I haven't got it since I got this new phone.
Oh, I don't know what to say. We'll have to look. But literally all I've been talking about basically is overcoming adversity in relationship. I was even telling Brad the other day at lunch that it does no good if it's in theory alone. It actually has to have a practical understanding and an application. It has to have a point where it's applied. We're constantly told, to love and, look beyond. Don't look at the flesh per se. Know one another after the flesh, but know one another after the spirit. But we often limited it as believers. But what good is that? That's kind of like we're only prophetic in church. Oh, great. Let's turn on a light where the light's supposed to be. So I mean, to me, that's very much the Lord is trying to get people out of themselves and off of themselves. And It takes a death to do it. As Brad would tell me, welcome to the brethren.
It's hard to be patient sometimes.
Yes, it is. Yeah, being patient is not. It's not fun. It's not easy, and it requires a lot of patience. No pun intended. You know. Right. Come here. Yeah, she does. We speak the same language.
Oh.
But
Cat language.
exactly. But yeah, patience is quite challenging. That was something the Lord. Shortly after I moved here, and I was actually down in Corpus, the Lord told me that I was going to have patience. And immediately I was tried in my patience. And
Did you know what the patience was going to be for? I mean, what?
Well, patient love is patient. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But we think patience in the sense of we think time frame.
Mm-hmm.
But think of patience in the sense of making a pearl, agitation, constant friction, pressure. Not the song, Bill. Not the song.
I love that song.
It's a good song. But you think of all those things and how, diamonds are created, pearls are created, the pressing of a coin, like all that sort of stuff. There's violence involved. It's a necessity in order to produce something precious out of it. So a relationship, to be perfectly honest, I hate talking about this because then I have to live it.
Well, with patience in relationships with patience, you have to have grace also.
You have to have mercy.
Mercy, yeah.
Like, if mercy is new every morning for you, isn't it for everyone else? I mean, not in our personal rule book, but in God's rule book, when the mercy is new for everybody else, or for us, it's also for.
We have to display the same attributes as God.
Because we have the same attributes.
Right.
We look at it from a place of this is God out here and we're over here and we don't have to do the same thing. We're separate, we're different, we're not. But he's going, no, I created you in my likeness. I created you in my image. If I'm patient and I don't seek after myself and I'm just, and if I'm not, I don't celebrate in wickedness. I don't celebrate in the failings of another. And I'm kind and I don't fail. I don't give up. Guess what you're going to have to do?
Same thing.
We're going to have to do all the same stuff, no matter which way it goes. No matter how it is, we're going to have to do it. No matter how much we want to throw in the towel, no matter how much people may try us, we can't. Walking away. Now, there's a difference between walking away from an abuser versus because somebody doesn't like the color of your shirt. Like some of the stuff that we end relationships on is so petty. I was watching a video yesterday. Like we talk about how we're going through like a hard time and that we're being persecuted or however we victimize ourselves in the moment. But I was watching this YouTube documentary on the Holocaust and what was the actual life experience from somebody who was under the persecution of the Germans at that point. Basically, anyone who was Jewish at that point. The stuff that happened to them was unreal. The stuff that they experienced, that was real. But the stuff that was happening in the midst of their community because of what God was doing in the midst of them. Think of Paul being beaten and put into prison. And at any point in time, do you not think that God could have praised his way out of prison? Could have gotten out in some fashion, in some form? You know? But he chose to stay there and to encourage others. So meanwhile, while we're going through our own stuff, God is working in our lives. It's just whether or not we choose to see it. It's either we look for him or we look at ourselves. But I'm going to stop talking because now it's turned back to what I was trying to avoid, which is me just talking.
I like what you said earlier about patience not being bound by, it's not necessarily a timing thing.
No.
It's easy to talk about patience in terms of waiting for something
Right.
to happen. And so we can define patience in a very
Manipulative
selfish way.
Yeah.
What we want. And so we're
Exactly.
just waiting for what we want. And we call that patience.
Right.
But I guess the patience you're talking about with the example of the pearl, okay, does the shell know what's happening in that moment of agitation?
Do you know what's happening in your moment of agitation?
No.
I mean, but we're always trying to force the pearl. But nobody knows how long it's going to take.
Or do we even know we're making a pearl?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we give up way too soon before we can even step into the pearl.
It's not about having patience, it's about showing patience.
Both. Because you can't show what you don't have. I can't go
If you really
here.
get right down to it, we have it. We just don't realize we
We're not-
have it.
We're not
Utilize
dying
it.
it.
We're not
We're not dying.
walking in it. We're not.
It requires a level of death. And we want to hold on to what we feel is right. We want to hold. Meow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shame
No shame at all. But we want to hold on to the right of being right. We want to feel justified in our self-victimization of ourselves, whether it's true or whether it's not. And so, but what's the Lord saying to someone else? So I'll shut up because I'm going to talk myself into a hole.
I keep hearing, slow down and enjoy the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Quit waiting for the next thing to happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of like been hearing rest,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't had any. I mean, literally, I haven't for 2 weeks. I sleep maybe 3 hours a night.
Yeah. I mean, what's that mean to you, though?
I don't know, I'm always so caught up in routines and doing the same thing, and I don't have to do that. I just
Yeah.
need to stop and slow down, wait for him, listen to him.
Yeah.
be more obedient.
Or how about enjoying the routine?
Well, I
Then it
didn't
doesn't-
say I didn't enjoy
No,
it.
I'm just saying, but really enjoying the moment,
Well, I do.
then it's not a routine.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I mean it's coming out of. I mean, well, there's beauty in consistency, but there's also beauty in chaos.
Mhm.
There's an unrecognized beauty sometimes in disruption that we don't always see.
Mhm.
And you imagine how Martha felt. Martha had her routine of taking care of the house and everything else. And I'm sure Mary was very much a part of it. And all of a sudden Jesus shows up and Mary's like, responsibility, what's that? And then she's like, if I could just sit at your feet and drink from the cup at your hand and lean back against you and breathe. And she wrote the next best worship song. But like it took a moment for Martha to realize, like, hey, wait a minute, there's something different. And I think that's good. There's an invitation into that. He's actually inviting you to spontaneity and out of that.
Yeah.
And where he's kind of almost in a sense redefining what. I mean, going into the obvious, is redefining what you've probably have placed your identity in for the last 20 something years.
Yeah.
And being a mom and a homemaker and everything. And when that doesn't necessarily stop, but it's not necessarily present.
Right.
So it's like, hey,
Looking for something.
now it's like, well, what do I do with this time?
Mhm.
What do I do with this? And so he's just,
Mhm.
yeah. I think, oftentimes we think and I say this all the time, we always think that rest is a lack of doing something. It's clearing out the schedule, and it can be that, but rest is about how we're doing things. If we're, if it's not the absence of friction, but it's when we're trying. We know it's a hexagon, but we keep on trying to put an octagon in it, sort of thing. So we keep trying to turn it and force it, turn it and force it, turn it and force it. Because eventually you will get that in there. Because you're going to reshape it. But we don't realize because we're reshaping it that we're trying to force something to happen, even though it looks like it's supposed to fit. But if we just kind of step back for a second and got a bigger picture of what's happening, we'd realize that we're trying to put it in the wrong shape. Because, yeah, eventually you will get a square peg into a round hole because you're going to reshape it because you keep trying to force it. You're gonna take away those edges, but there's also somewhere perfect for that square. And so rest is how we're going about a thing. But then at the same time, when we're not actually sleeping, it's all right, Lord, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I know for me, the Lord's been really just kind of speaking to me about a couple of things, but like, it was a couple months ago that he really kind of started talking to me about getting back to like how he's trying to bring the body back into really walking and living in the Spirit. Not from a place of carnality, not from a place of our mind, but from a place of our spirit. Because we've been doing it by knowledge. And so we've taken so much of what we know instead of just asking, like, what do you want me to do? Like, I think back of my earlier days of my walk with the Lord, and I would, Lord, what freeway do you want me to take?
Mhm.
Now, I was doing that so I could familiarize myself or become, so I knew and could recognize the voice. when it speaks to me. But bringing him back into direction, I even think about how, shortly after out of surgery, in my recovery process, and because like the way things were going, I wasn't sleeping very well. So I understand that because I'm currently in that position too. And I just woke up one morning and it was way too early for me to be awake, and just going, all right, Lord, what's on your heart? It was the first time like I thought about it in like 6 weeks to do that when I'm can't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Because normally I was like, dear Lord, who art in heaven, tired is my name. Thy sleep come, thy dreams be done on this pillow as it is in heaven. But it didn't I didn't get to where I was trying to go. And so then one morning I was like, Lord, what's on your heart? That's when he was like, all right, you're going to give up your apartment. You're going to move here. You're going to do this. You're going to take care of this. You're going to do this. And, and even in the midst of that, I'm trying to fight it. So I had a bunch of people trying to like put the person who was taking my apartment, they were trying to put their move on, like to move their stuff as my responsibility. And I was like, I'm trying to move, please. Moving is stressful, And then I realized how I was responding to people, and then realized I'm the one that's supposed to be doing this. I'm the one that's supposed to take care of it. And so it's us getting back to walking and living in the Spirit, where in many ways we've kind of built our own Tower of Babel based upon knowledge and things we've been told and things that we've heard and read and blah, 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 all the forms and the ways that we develop knowledge. We've built our own Tower of Babel that's what we thought has reached the heavens, but we don't realize that we're not actually in the heavens. We're just out of the first heaven, so we've ascended in some fashion. It's kind of like confusing like the motion of the ocean with actual movement. When you're in a boat and you're just like a dinghy. But you're not going anywhere. And so we've ascended to this place, and we realize that it's not here. And so because we can see the Father, we feel like we've ascended. But we've missed the main point.
Mm-hmm.
No one comes to the Father except through me. But we've built our own Jacob's ladder, Babel, whatever. We've built our own thing. And so the Lord was like, I'm going to break apart man's traditions and man's ways and cause you to live by the Spirit once again. And so that's been interesting to watch unfold and participate in. And then on the other hand, the Lord's been telling me how important it is to maintain relationships and not allow them to fall apart. But in that, so he's been having me, teach and equip the people around me of, all right, the holidays, people are challenging during the holidays. We're all challenging at any given point, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't need a time frame of year. We all present our own challenges, but we have to remember they're people. They have value. They have worth. Even if they challenge our ability to extend grace, they still have value. They still have worth. Even when we're like, Lord, these people you brought in my life, I need to see your face so that I know that you are with me. You start feeling like Moses leading the people of Israel out of Egypt. And you go, clearly this isn't the tribe for me because it's trying. But meanwhile, it's the tribe for you because it's trying. We've confused conformity with unity. Just because we don't all have the same doctrinal beliefs on things or the same way of functioning and living our lives, and we're gonna have some of us are gonna have different ways of living, while others have their own way of living, and that's perfectly okay. But we get in our mind thinking that everything has to happen and unfold in a specific way, in a specific fashion. If it doesn't look like that, it's not unity. No, if it's doing all that, you no longer have unity. You have a cult. You know, and I've seen a few, but so walking in this thing called love, when it comes to people, we always think that it's going to be easy. I'm just going to love them with the love of God. Well, the love of God had death involved, so it's going to kill us, and that death is going to look different for everybody. Sometimes that death is going to look like us falling on our sword and just realizing, you know what, I was wrong, or, this isn't, and using that really, strong 6-letter phrase, I'm sorry. Wait, 7. 7-letter phrase going, I'm sorry. But sometimes that sword looks a little different. And that's just walking through the process of the friction so that a pearl can be created. So the diamond can be created. Because if people can walk through stuff together and love is maintained during the entire time, it just makes them stronger. No matter what kind of relationship it is.
You stand by them just the way you want them to stand by you in your trials and your
Yeah, because
stuff.
we're all going to have moments where we're less than perfect.
Mhm.
Actually, I have a whole life where I'm less than perfect, but
None of us are perfect.
and so it's in this season from the Lord's, because the reality is we're going to need each other.
Mhm.
We already do need each other. It's important. I mean, God saw. Think about it. Adam had God in the garden. And the greatest expression that probably a human has ever experienced the Lord. And then he still said it's not good for man to be alone. And we always just limit that to like marriage. But if that was the case, then why did Paul say, unless you have to? But at the same time, there's blessing in it. So God was saying that it is not good for man to do this thing called life alone. And so we need each other. And when we don't have, I like how the French put it, I miss you is not like I miss you in the English context of what we understand it. It's you are missing from me. So it's literally so in French and how they kind of speak it and how it gets presented is my life is not complete. But now that you're back, my life is complete. The body is not complete. So when one is missing, it's kind of like that puzzle I did a while back, where the puzzle I had Eleanor and Christine do was a piece missing. And no matter how far back you get from it, there's art. Like I can pull out art pieces, and if you get up and close, it's blurry. It looks like Bigfoot. But if you get far enough back, you have this beautiful picture. But no matter what you do with that puzzle, no matter how far back or up close you get, it's still an incomplete picture. And so when we don't have the people in our life that God is bringing into our lives, that puzzle is incomplete. We are incomplete. Something is missing from us.
That idea of needing one another
Mm-hmm.
is often talked about in the context of bad things that are going to happen in the future. And therefore we will need one another to survive.
Yeah, there's a level of that.
But, really, I like that explanation of completeness.
Yeah.
It's not that we need one another to survive. We need one another to be complete.
But there's also a certain level where there are people in your life that are literally like oxygen molecules, and so you do need them to survive. So there is a level of that too. But I mean, it's not just to endure hard times.
Right.
It's to enjoy,
Because then you think of building relationships, kind of like stocking canned food, in your pantry.
Exactly. And I ain't got that much room for people or canned food.
Exactly.
And so, so we get all Facebook cliche, but the difference between wellness and illness is we. You take the word illness, you take out the I and put we, and now you have wellness. Or a burden shared is a burden divided, but a joy shared is a joy multiplied. So we don't necessarily just need people for hard times, we need people for good times.
It says rejoice when they rejoice, weep when they weep.
Yeah. So we need one another. But it goes, in order for something to be true, not in the sense of truth, but in order for something to be solid, it has to withstand pressure, it has to withstand friction. I mean, your faith has to go through testing and trials in order to see where you, and it's not for God to see where you can stand. It's for you to see where God stands. It's just that little bit of a twist of a perspective. It goes back to Job. Everyone goes, oh, I feel like Job because I'm going through so much and the Lord's testing me. The Lord was showing Job off, not testing him. The conversation came out like this. Lucy comes up to the Lord and says, you have no one faithful in your camp. You have no one faithful part of your thing that you got going on here down in the earth. And the Lord goes, well, have you tried my servant Job? He's pretty faithful. He goes, huh. And God goes, I know he's so faithful, you can go up to this point with him. And then he goes up to that point, and then, if you allow me to do this, I'll show you how unfaithful he really is. Then he does that. Relationships can be the same way. This relationship will fall apart if this happens. So we got two different forms of patience going on. So clearly the Lord's sharing about patience. I'm sorry. It's not fun. What else is he saying to y'all?
I know that lately with me, it's I think you even played one of the songs I think that you played had something along those lines about going back to your first love.
Mm.
Even when I got up this morning and I was just like 3 hours of sleep again. The first thing I heard the Lord say, come and spend time with me. And I'm like, I just want some coffee, so then I can come and spend time with you. But those kind of things where it's like when I'm hearing him, am I gonna go and do it right then?
Yeah.
Those kind of things for me. So he's showing me where I'm off and where I need to be with him.
Yeah, I understand that. I've had to learn that if I don't do what he tells me to do immediately,
Yeah, you won't do it.
Yeah.
You just won't. I'm just being honest. I found myself even this morning. I'm like, I'll do it as soon as I get this coffee, and the next thing you know, I never did it. It makes me want to cry right now, but I never did it. And it's not. I don't think it's not because I don't love God. It's just I don't think I've really realized He is everything.
yeah.
The coffee doesn't matter, The
Hebrews.
I wish he would. Just, there's my coffee. No, but I mean, it's just, come back to your first love, spending time with him. And another thing, and I had just told Tom that the other day, inviting him into everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Right down to, what do I need at the grocery store? Do you want me to buy this?
Yeah.
I'm starting to ask God these things. I've never done that before, but I'm like, some people are like, hey, you're taking it too literal, but I don't really believe I am taking it too literal.
I mean, part of it is just it starts out in that fashion where you find yourself asking him every step of the way until you start learning to recognize when he's speaking along the way.
Well,
'Cause then you don't even
I've
see-
missed his voice too many times.
Yeah.
Where I've thought it was him. And I'm so sick of thinking it's him. I just want to know that it's him.
Well, so does everyone else.
You know what I mean.
I do, and I'll give you the answer that was given to me. It wouldn't be faith now, is it? That was my face. But I was on a phone. And I'm like, because I'm like, why can't I just know?
Yeah.
I mean, I can have certainty about other people's lives. Why can't I just have it about mine? What's so wrong about that?
Does that sound like me?
But
I can know your God for other people. They just claw you right
um, but yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to choose our own way instead of just doing it his way.
Mhm.
But no, I mean,
What I've discovered, just really seriously, just within the last 30 days, with a lot of things that have transpired, it matters. It matters who you're connected to. And, and the main person that we're to be connected to is God.
Right.
Because if you're not plugged in there, nothing else is going to work. You can think it is, and it might for a little while, but it's going to end up malfunctioning.
Oh yeah.
So that's one thing that I've learned within the past 30 days. And he's just really showing me things where I'm not and I'm not trying to be like, oh, God's trying to, beat me across the head, because he's not. God doesn't do that. But he's showing me
He comes with a staff every so often.
But he's shown me where I've gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
Your heart's in the right place, but you're supposed to be here, and you went way over there. So, those kind of things, but also showing me that it's not too late.
No, not at all.
So there's my transparent moment.
It's a good transparent moment.
Yay. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said about just doing what he says when he tells us to do it. I mean, in a Western church, you go, oh well, I'll get another opportunity until your conscience is seared, and then you don't have another opportunity.
Yeah, because you don't always get another.
No, but I mean, in our grace-filled version of life, we think we just get another opportunity. Until you just don't make the right decision, and your conscience is seared after a while.
I don't know what I have to say. I have to say this because somebody had posted on Facebook the other day. They had copied. I guess somebody had put on Twitter about if Paul was here, he'd be sending the American Church a letter.
I saw that, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I was really kind of appalled at how many people laughed at that. Because I'm like, that grieves God's heart. Because I mean, yeah, we probably would, and not probably, we would be getting a letter from Paul. And part of me was like, how can people think that's funny? It's not funny. That's, to me, it makes me very sad inside, because we shouldn't be where we're at.
Well, yeah.
So I don't know.
I have an immediate response, but I won't say it because it would be taken wrongly.
Oh, that's right. We're recording.
I mean, whatever. I can care less. Yeah. But I'm just going to use this as an example.
Okay.
It's because we're getting our coffee before we're choosing God.
Thank you.
But that's really what it is. We're choosing.
You're right.
We're choosing ourselves more than we're choosing the Lord. That's even when,
Cafeteria
Christianity. Let me put it. Let me use me as the example now. But in what was it, April or March of this year? I don't remember when it was. But basically, when the Lord said, you have two choices. Do something about your weight, or I'm bringing you home. But it wasn't really worded like that. It was like, hey, you're going to die soon. But the Lord loved me enough to bring me home instead of allowing me to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I already knew what I knew. And for me to sit here and do what I know would actually cause me to be in a place of constant sin. And so I'm talking to Brad and trying to be as well maintained and self-controlled as I possibly could in those moments. And he goes, your basic choices are this. Do you love God more than you love yourself or not? It sounds like a really hard word. And it kind of was. It was meant to wake me up. But that's what it did. I had to choose, Do I love myself in the sense of allowing me to stay where I'm at? Or will I choose the road that doesn't sound very pleasant? No one wants to get, 18-inch sword stabbed into them multiple times. Nothing about that. I was a human shish kebab. And it permanently changes my life. I can never drink Perrier probably again. It's a sad no. I can't have carbonation at all. Just simple stuff that we instantly take for granted.
That sucks. No champagne.
No pop in the bottles. None of it. But
you love God more than you love
I had to choose. There really was a difference. The real but it sounds dramatic, but it's literally truth. I had to choose life or death. One road was hard and challenging, and the other road, though it looked like easy, would have led to death. Wide is the gate, and I needed a wide road, no pun intended. I can make those jokes. It's okay to laugh at them. I made them. But I needed to get down the narrow road. But the problem was, because I had a dream about it, I couldn't fit down the narrow road. The road that the Lord wanted to bring me on, I was not able to physically fit. I was not physically fit to go down that road. Better scratch is. But we have to make that decision of, are we going to choose the Lord or are we going to choose ourselves?
I guess you could say every decision is a life or death.
Yes.
It could be literal life or death, but spiritual life or death.
So it's all literal. It's a literal life and death,
yes.
No matter which way you go.
Because if we do hear the voice and follow the voice, it's something as small as, do I buy this item on?
Is this the cantaloupe for my cart?
Yes. By doing so, you're experiencing life.
Right. Yeah. Because your obedience. His words are life. Back to what your experience was. Remember when Jesus tells the disciples, hey, why don't you guys go get some food? I'm hungry. And then Jesus goes off and ministers to somebody while the disciples are at Circle K. And then they come back and they're like, hey, we got the taquitos or whatever. And he goes, it's all good. I'm not hungry anymore. And they're like, well, who gave him food? He sent us to go get food. What did you eat? And he goes, my Father's will is food. I have food. I have nourishment you do not know of. So when we hear his voice and we operate in the obedience of it, it becomes a form of nourishment that we knew not of, that we walk into, that we step into. It can become our coffee. I mean, here's the funny thing. Since coffee's been allowed back into my diet, I've actually been more tired since having it. Yeah. Figure that out. Mainly because I don't drink 38 cups of coffee a day. But, but it still comes back to being obedient immediately. And oftentimes we already know the right things to do. We're over here like Gideon putting out like 3 different fleeces and we're not entirely sure if the right one got wet enough, but let's try it in reverse now. Meanwhile, the question we have for the Lord is like, should we have white bread or brown bread? for our avocado toast. Like, we're over here casting fleeces. But we just have to be obedient. Our mind is kind of what the Babel does not like it. It wants to compete with it. It wants to fight it. It wants to get offended by it, and all this other stuff. But in all actuality, the more we step into it, the better off we are. Anything else? Anything else the Lord's been sharing with y'all? Nothing? I don't know.
I don't think.
What about off foot?
No, not off my foot either. Or anybody part foot.
Not the eyebrow?
Not off the cuff either.
We don't even have cuffs. But this is either a reason to come or a reason people will stop coming. But this is pretty much what we're gonna be doing the next few weeks because the Lord's constantly speaking to us.
He speaks all the time. But are we always listening?
Yeah, that is the question.
Okay, I have one more thing that I'll share because I haven't shared it with anybody. A few months ago, it was a little over 2 months ago. It was SOS. I just shared it on Facebook again when Brad was teaching, and he was teaching on, basically not everything that's good is God. And, there's opportunities that come and, oh, this sounds really, really good. And you'll get the scriptures that make it all sound really, really good too. But then, no, God really wanted you over here.
Right.
Well, ever since then, I've been praying. My job. Is this really where God wants me? Because I have these big ideas and these big, but there's the I. And so I really started asking, and I even went to Brad and asked him if he would pray with me, that I would know, when Brad kind of laugh at you, and you'll know by the end of the year. And
sounds about right.
I hadn't made a freaking sound since. Okay.
Sounds like you'll know by the end of the year.
And then I started having dreams. And then I'm not going to share the dream because we're on Facebook.
Understandable.
But I had a dream, and in the dream, it was very clear. There was no other way. This was what I'm doing. It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. That's not what he has for me. It's basically, it's like, yeah, Candace, you can go here. You can go do that. But that's not going to lead you to what you say you want with me. Because that's one thing I've been praying. And that scares me to even tell people I pray that he would just bind my heart to his. And he showed me in no uncertain terms, going that way, it's not going to do that. And so, there, I cried. I hate that. So anyhow, that's one thing that he's showing me. And that's, I guess, what I was trying to say. It really does matter your connections, where you're connected to, because it's only going to get you so far. So, yeah. Then when he told me he wanted me to get a part-time job, just at a regular, Okay, okay, I don't know why, but okay. So there,
He has something for you.
so there.
It's a good thing.
I had a funeral. I had a funeral to what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand it all too well.